when somebody hears your demo, it's not fair for you or even for your client to think it's going to sound exactly the same, but it doesn't mean that they won't come to you and that they haven't come to me, because they have. After hearing something and say, do it like that, and I do it, and they go, that doesn't sound like the demo. It doesn't sound as, and here's usually the way they'll say it to me. This is a common one. Your voice doesn't sound as deep here as it did on the demo. Now, let me take a moment to say, never manipulate your voice for a demo. Don't pitch it down. Don't pitch it up. Don't make it sound like, don't speed it up to make it sound like you can read faster than you can, like for automobile ads and that kind of thing, because that would not be a fair representation. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the impression, and I'm thinking of one in particular, but this has happened numerous times, where and I knew what it was immediately. The feeling of the commercial was big. And it was, as a matter of fact, it was a Ford Mustang commercial that they heard on my demo. And it had some grit and some power behind it. And yeah, I dropped my voice as low as I could for the commercial, but I don't manipulate my material. So the demo made it feel and sound to them different than when they just heard my dry voice. It's like, have you ever, you have a favorite singer, favorite band, and you listen to their recordings, and then you hear them sing a cappella with no effects, no nothing. It's like, oh, okay. Well, doesn't have nearly the emotional impact that a full production does. Okay, so now that I've established that, that's often what happens if the client says, well, it doesn't sound like, your voice sounds different. It's perceived differently within the context of, the context of a production. Now you could attempt to explain that to a client and say, well, I assure you that is my voice. Understand the production has put additional processing on it, which I'm sure you will do with the recording that I give you as well. Another thing that you can do is, if you're confident that what they're asking you to, the thing that they're pointing to on your demo, like for instance, in this particular instance, where there was more bass, and I know that I can give them more bass and help to create more of that feeling of power and low voice, not because my voice is lower, but because I'm emphasizing the right frequencies of my voice. And maybe, there may be times when somebody says, hey, I'm sorry, this is not, it's not the same. I can't use it. And that's okay too, because that happens. And I remember a client in particular, I can't remember whether they ended up using it or not, but I remember them being insistent that it wasn't the same voice. And it was. And I read it exactly, I read the project exactly the same, but it didn't land the same. It didn't have the same emotional impact. By the way, what I'm talking about, this happens rarely. This is not an everyday occurrence. Again, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've recorded over 10,000 projects, and it's happened less than 5 times. So this is one of those rare things, but it's not rare that people worry about it. And if you're concerned about it, I will just say, don't be. Might it come up in conversation at some point? It could. Wouldn't worry about it. You just talk with a client, you work it out as best you can. But just know you do need good audio. It needs to be good quality. It needs to be, again, well treated. You need good acoustic, material around you and all that kind of stuff. You know that. You don't need to hear me say that. But the point is, don't worry about that, because it is a rare thing that a client brings it up. And when it does, it's just typically because a production it lands different, because it's built to create an emotional impact, more so than you can do with just your voice. Take your voice and it can have impact. You add music and production and processing to the audio, you can 2x, 3x, 10x the emotional impact of a production. That's just the way it is. So that's something to be aware of. And again, it is absolutely nothing to worry about.